You ever wake up thinking today's the day things get better, and then life just punches you in the gut instead? Yeah, 3 days after my dad passed, I thought maybe inheriting the Maddox Ranch would be a fresh start. Turns out I was dead wrong. The universe had other plans. Because before I'd even gotten my boots muddy, the HOA declared war. Not a neighborly handshake, not a casserole, just a white Lexus, two black SUVs, and a lady in heels stomping across gravel like she owned the place. And she wasn't alone, clipboard-hugging soldiers flanking her, all acting like my family's land was theirs for the taking. I remember sitting in that old pickup, the engine ticking the Colorado sun barely over the ridge, and seeing those cars block my gate like it was some crime scene. My father's gate, mind you, iron latch worn smooth by 3 generations. I'd barely touched the ground when she strode up, said my name with that tone people use when they've already written your obituary. Mr. Maddox, like a question, but not really. She didn't wait for me to answer before launching into HOA lingo influence guidelines, community aesthetics, all dressed up to sound official, but it felt like a threat. Your land directly borders our community, she said. So your activities maintenance and overall visual presence fall under our guidelines. I almost choked. Ma'am, this ranch isn't part of your HOA, I told her. She smiled cold as January. While that's technically true, your property affects ours. We have standards. You ever get that feeling someone's rehearsed their lines for days, just waiting for you to walk into the scene? That was Linda Caraway, president of the Marshland Heights Homeowners Association, trim blazer clipboard, and the smugness of a cat who thinks the canary's already dead. But here's the thing, she had no claim. My father made sure of it. He fought every developer, every land grabber, every city slicker who tried to carve up the valley. Still standing there with my grief barely settled, I got a stack of violations shoved in my hand, $200 a day for the tractor, $200 for unsightly fencing, $200 for shoreline disorder. They hadn't even waited for my dad's dust to settle. I just stared at those papers, the dust swirling around her fancy shoes, and realized this wasn't about fences or paint or even the lake. This was about power, and they figured with Dad gone, I'd fold like a cheap chair. Now, you ever try to handle loss and a hostile takeover at the same time? It'll age you 10 years in a night. I called up Juan Briggs, old ranch hand friend of the family guy who can fix anything with duct tape and a story. Juan showed up, saw the notices, and just shook his head. They've been after that lake for years. Not because they need it, because it sells houses. Your dad never talked about it much, but he knew. That HOA's been circling, waiting for a weak moment. That night, the ranch was too quiet. I couldn't sleep, so I started digging through Dad's old office cedar drawers, stacks of faded papers and maps. That's when I found it, a thick folder, Maddox, water and land boundaries, Dad's handwriting, inside survey maps, water filings, deeds, and one old topo map with a red box drawn around the whole lake and dam. Watch this, he'd written. Dad never left anything to chance. The next morning, a white envelope slid under my door, 3 more violations, all neatly typed, like they'd been printed before I even arrived. Then the real game started. Drones buzzing overhead, strangers snapping photos from across the fence. Sheriff Whitmore showed up, hat in hand, sympathy in his eyes. Got complaints about noise waste shoreline conditions, he said. I laughed. Sheriff, the loudest thing here is my coffee maker. He told me to document everything. They want a paper war, give 'em one. But here's where it twisted. Turns out the HOA had been holding events on our lake for years. Weddings, paddleboard socials, summer festivals, all advertised as exclusive to their residents. Only problem, the lake was never theirs. Dad renewed water rights filings every 5 years. The county had denied every easement request the HOA ever filed. They just bet no one would call their bluff. I started keeping records, every drone, every car, every complaint, every flyer with the words private lake access. I took photos, videos, even picked up their trash after they ran another event on my shoreline, just more evidence. And then just when I thought I'd seen every low trick, they sent out a community email calling me a liar, telling everyone to ignore the new property owner's claims and use the lake as always. That's when Harper Sloan entered the picture, land attorney, with a handshake like a bear trap. She'd advised Dad once quiet and behind the scenes. Now she looked over my file, smiled that razor-sharp smile, and said, Cole, you've got an arsenal here. Just let them keep digging their own grave. So I did. I filmed their annual lake event, watched Linda parade around with her megaphone residents streaming down to the dock my father rebuilt, setting up volleyball nets, handing out wristbands, thinking they'd bought a slice of paradise. I captured every second, every sign, every face. The next day, Harper filed the cease and desist. Linda's face when she got the packet. She looked like the ground dropped out from under her. For the first time, she seemed scared. That was the tipping point. Rumors flew, residents demanded answers. The board panicked. Some begged me to be reasonable. Others threatened lawsuits. But the records didn't lie. The deed was crystal clear. The denied easement was the nail in the coffin, and the community email, pure defamation in writing. Sheriff Whitmore said, "Let your lawyer handle this, but don't let him push you." The courtroom showdown came fast. Judge Hartman didn't have time for HOA theatrics. Their lawyer tried to claim historic use. The judge just said historic trespass isn't ownership. Harper laid out everything: deeds violations, photos, event flyers, amenity fees. The gallery gasped. Linda tried to shout, but the judge shut her down. Then she read the verdict: HOA's rights void, all events canceled, full financial audit. And Linda removed as president right there on the courthouse steps. And then the real twist: the new board offered to lease lake access from me. 30 years, fair market rate legal fees reimbursed. All of a sudden, the same folks who'd called me an outsider were begging for a seat at the table. I took a walk to the lake thinking about Dad, about legacy, about what justice means. It's not about revenge, it's about setting things right and making sure nobody else gets pushed around. The new lease got signed, my terms, my rules, no more lies, no more pretending. The HOA covered every dime they owed, and residents finally got the truth. The land remembers who respects it. And so does the law. Out here, it's not the loudest voice or the fanciest car that wins, it's the one with the facts, the patience, and the stubborn streak to see things through. So let me ask you, if you were standing at that fence, would you have let them lease the lake, or would you have locked it down forever? Where's the line between forgiveness and justice? Drop your take below, and if you've ever had to fight for what's yours, tell your story. 'Cause out here, you learn quick the truth always floats to the surface, and sometimes all it takes is someone willing to stand their ground.